Hey everyone, welcome back to the live Forex trading account with epicflow.io that's hooked up to a Wanda. This video series is keeping track of my $50,000 live account that I have here, which is now hovering just over $53,000. We're going to walk through the past 2 weeks since it's been 2 weeks since the last update. And a lot's happened since then geopolitically with Greenland and Trump, economically with some of the statements that the administration's made over the value of the US dollar, crazy gold spikes, crazy gold drops, and crazy US dollar rebounds with the naming of the replacement for the Federal Reserve chair. So a lot of things happened over the past couple of weeks, and we're going to dive into that. Had some crazy good exits that's generated a good amount of returns, and I'm currently sitting at about a 6% gain on this account since this started at the end of December. And today is February 3rd. So let's get in and check it out. And if you want, subscribe and follow along, and you'll see these updates as we put them out. And if you want to follow along on the application, we have a demo mode that works just like this. It's free, simulated money, and you can test out the strategies. All right, let's get to it.
Okay, so let's take a look. It's been a couple weeks since we've been back here. And let's take a look at what's happened. We'll just go back a month. And we can see that during the last 2 weeks, starting with the whole Greenland debacle and the subsequent comments by the administration, et cetera, really drove the US dollar down. Since we're heavily loaded on the US dollar, either it being a Euro USD short or USD CHF long, that had a bit of a drawdown during that period. Over the past couple of days, however, that's kind of recovered back to where it was with the stabilization of the expectation of the Federal Reserve, with Kevin Walsh being nominated for that role. So if we take a look currently at our bots, we can see that we just had an exit. I was trying to get a video of this happening right before, but it looks like we had a pretty good spike on the USD CHF. We had this running for about 11 days, consumed almost $4,000 worth of margin, and had a nice healthy return of almost $300. And during that 11 days, because of that margin use, we were able to also grab about a little over $70 in finance credit. So that all added together is about a 9% return. And if we look at the graph, we can see here 35 orders. And all these blue are buy orders. And you can see here that we had a sell order on last week, Tuesday, I think it was, on the 27th. What happened in that scenario is, as I mentioned earlier, these bot runs will get divided into phases. So they're going to get allocated a certain percentage of margin that they can use. In this case, it's a little over $5,800. So that $5,800 will get divided into 4. And as the margin use crosses each one of those boundaries, things happen. We'll back off on purchasing. We'll slow down some of the other bots. And when it gets to that 4th phase, meaning it's consumed a full 3 phases of that, if there's improvement in price, we will sell off. We call these micro trades or smart trade timing. We'll sell off some of the open orders to reduce that margin use so it goes back to the previous phase. And that will enable the other bots to start trading again. So once it gets to phase 4, the other bots cannot progress to their next phases. Again, just risk management that helps prevent massive drawdown and massive margin usage. So we can see here that, beginning late Friday, it started ramping up and we just had a nice spike and it was able to exit. And we can see the same thing kind of happening with the US Canadian. We have, since this one's still open, these are open buy orders. And again, also on the 27th of January, we we're in our phase 4 here as well, and that released. So this one is now in its third phase. And you'll notice here that it has the indicator that it's going to be terminated after this current run is complete. That's because our algorithm has decided that, once this exit, we're not going to restart this bot. We're going to start another pair that will be determined. So in this last couple of weeks, we've had quite a few exits. Some have been a little stagnant, but if we take a look at this last week, our EuroCAD has had 6 exits. Australia CHF had 1 exit, and that is now gone out of the system. That was chosen to leave. It's had a nice run up, and we think that may stay kind of stagnant up at the top there. So we brought in the CAD CHF in its replacement. That also had an exit. And we can see here that the Euro USD, USD Canadian, and USD CHF had no exits. But because of those trades, those micro trades, it had gains during this week, as well as significant financing. So all of this added together was a 1% return during this last week. If we take a look at the week prior, so this is for the week of January 16th to the 23rd, we still had a handful of runs as well. It generated, close to 1% return. So not a whole lot of exits compared to the previous where we had 52 exits in a handful of weeks, but we're still able to generate profit, and we're able to keep growing our balance. So if we take a look at this, we started the balance, $51,141. And right now that balance is $53,807. So a 5% return in a little over a month. Yes, we did have a drawdown. That's going to happen. But with the risk management, with the back off, that's going to help alleviate some of the massive drawdowns if it were going to continue to buy. And one of the added features we've done this past couple of weeks is we've enhanced our custom exit feature. Before, it was just, hey, I can immediately close this and restart that run. I can apply a trailing stop right at this point in time and specify distance, that profit buffer. And now what we can do is also override these settings. And we can say, hey, I want to set a take profit price. This one is, I think this is going to go on a huge run. Since this is a short, it's going to go lower. So I'm going to set this to 1.610. Review, just confirm that what you're going to do. And now we're going to enter this price triggered option into this custom exit. So it's going to override the min profit and profit buffer and take profit price at what you've defined it as that. You can also set a stop loss. So if you want to minimize it, let's say we come to the Euro USD and we say, you know what? I want to create a stop loss if, again, this is a short, so it's going to be reversed. If this gets back to 120, I want to set a stop loss. And then we also can set bounds, like a full bracket order. And we can say, hey, if this gets to 1.175, and you're basically setting those bounds. So if it drops a certain amount, just take that loss at that point. If it reaches a certain amount, take that. This will not hit a trailing stop loss. It won't start flashing green. It'll just close when it hits that particular amount. And you can always cancel this and go back to the default, which is the bot's min profit exit plus the buffer. I'm going to do the same on this one and let that go. And while we were waiting, we saw this one hit the trailing stop loss. So it hit our profit targets. This actually had an exit earlier today, and this has been running only 4 hours now. Just one order, but again, small orders add up. Okay. Be back with an update hopefully later this week. Happy trading, everyone. Just kidding. I'm back. Today's February 3rd. There was another exit yesterday, and we got the monthly summary update that I wanted to combine into this video. So yesterday, we did about $600. We also had a nice exit on our Euro USD that I wanted to share with you guys. We had this run, number 15, that took 17 days. Let's move me here. We had quite a few orders. Never mind this 8 orders. That's a user interface bug. But we've had quite a few orders here and used around $4,400 worth of margin. And yesterday during the down spike in the Euro USD and including the up spike in the USD CHF, we had almost all of our positions that were running for a couple of weeks exit and generated a nice return. The last remaining one is our USD Canadian. It's within striking distance, and that one is the last one that's using a considerable amount of margin. Everything else is restarted over the past, few days. This has been running for 3 days. This exited yesterday, and yesterday as well. And we can see that, as you've seen, we've had the weekly exit summaries. But at the end of each month, we'll get the monthly summary for that month. So we can see here that in the month of January, we had a 4% return on the balance. Again, the balance and the net asset value, we treat those differently. All of the growth is on the balance because the NAV will fluctuate quite greatly during that time period. So we can see that our USD Canadian had no exits during the month of January. It was started kind of mid-month. But you'll notice it has a gain of $118 in addition to the financing, the daily swap fees. So you may be asking yourself, hey, without an exit, how do we have a gain? Because when bots run and consume margin, they, like I mentioned earlier, they will go through these phases. And if it hits a certain phase, we can sell some of the orders for profit to lower that margin use. And that's what happened here. And this one sold. You can see here we had this sell order, which sold these orders. That's what generated that profit. So even though you don't have an exit during a time period, it can still generate gains through our micro trading. But we can see here that, apart from the EuroCAD short, everything else generated a daily finance positive credit, which allows us to have a net positive amount on that. So we can see that, we are now at an 8% margin use and things are humming along, and I'm happy. We have, almost 6% return since we started this account. All right. See you soon. Happy trading.